The champagne glass hit the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. I watched the crystal explode into 1,000 glittering pieces at my husband's feet, the golden liquid spreading across the polished white stone like an accusation. Trevor's face had gone the color of concrete. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The billionaire standing in front of me had tears streaming down his face. "I've been looking for you for 28 years, he whispered, his voice breaking. 20 minutes earlier, Trevor had gripped my elbow so hard I knew it would bruise. We stood in the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and people who mattered. People Trevor desperately wanted to impress. "Stay in the back," he hissed in my ear, his breath hot against my skin. "Don't embarrass me. Don't talk to anyone important. Just stand there and smile if someone looks at you." I was wearing a blue dress I'd bought on sale 3 years ago. Trevor had glanced at it when I came downstairs and said, "That'll do, I guess." His own suit was brand new, tailored, expensive. He'd used our joint credit card. The one that used to be mine before he convinced me to add his name for emergencies. "Trevor, I just thought." I started. "Don't think," he snapped. "That's not what you're good at. Just do what I said. The new owner is coming tonight. Ramon Pierce. This could make or break my career. I need him to see me as executive material, not as some guy with a wife who can't even dress properly." I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. After 15 years of marriage, I'd learned which battles to fight. This wasn't one of them. Trevor smoothed his tie and walked away from me without another glance, joining a cluster of his colleagues near the bar. I found a spot near the back wall, next to a tall potted plant that partially hid me from view. Perfect. Invisible. Just how Trevor wanted me. The ballroom was magnificent. Hundreds of people in expensive clothes drinking expensive wine, celebrating the acquisition of Trevor's company by Pierce Industries. Everyone was excited. Nervous. The new owner was rumored to be young, ruthless, brilliant. He'd built his empire from nothing, starting with a single tech patent at age 23. Now, at 42, he owned 17 companies across 3 continents. I sipped my water and watched Trevor. He was animated, laughing too loud, touching people's arms the way he did when he wanted something. I used to find it charming. Now it just looked desperate. A woman in a red dress approached him. Brittany from accounting. She laughed at something Trevor said, her hand lingering on his shoulder. I looked away. I'd suspected for months. The late nights at work. The way he password protected his phone. The distance in his eyes when he looked at me, as if I were a piece of furniture he'd grown tired of. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed over the microphone. "Please welcome the CEO of Pierce Industries, Ramon Pierce." The room erupted in applause. Everyone turned toward the entrance. I craned my neck to see over the crowd but could only catch glimpses. A tall figure. Dark suit. The crowd parted as he moved through the room. Trevor had positioned himself right at the edge of the crowd, in the perfect spot to intercept the new owner. I saw him straighten his tie again, put on his most winning smile. Ramon Pierce emerged from the crowd. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark brown skin and close-cropped hair that was just starting to gray at the temples. His suit probably cost more than my car. But it was his eyes that caught me. Dark, intelligent, searching. Those eyes swept the room and landed on Trevor. Trevor extended his hand. "Mr. Pierce, I'm Trevor Hamilton, VP of Operations. It's an honor to finally..." Ramon Pierce looked at Trevor's outstretched hand, looked at his face, and then looked past him. His gaze moved across the room, methodical, searching. And then it found me. Everything stopped. I saw the recognition in his eyes. Saw the shock. Saw something that looked like grief and joy and disbelief all mixed together. He took a step toward me. Then another. Trevor was still talking, his hand still extended, but Ramon wasn't listening. The entire room watched as the billionaire CEO walked past Trevor without a word, past the executives and managers and important people, straight across the ballroom toward the back wall where I stood next to a potted plant in my 3-year-old blue dress. People whispered. Phones came out. Trevor's face cycled through confusion, then embarrassment, then anger. Ramon stopped in front of me. Up close, I could see the lines around his eyes, the expensive watch on his wrist, the way his hands were shaking slightly. "Diane?" he said softly. "Diane Foster. My maiden name. I hadn't heard it in 15 years. "Yes." My voice came out as barely a whisper. The tears started then rolling down his cheeks. This powerful man, this billionaire, crying in the middle of his own gala. "I've been looking for you for 28 years. Behind him, I heard the champagne glass shatter. Trevor stood frozen, his face pale, the broken glass at his feet. Brittany had her hand over her mouth. Every single person in that ballroom was staring at us. "I'm sorry," I said, my mind racing. "I don't understand. Do I know you?" "The community center," Ramon said, his voice thick with emotion. "Summer of 1997. You were volunteering there. I was the kid everyone else had given up on. And then I saw it. Past the expensive suit and the confident bearing, I saw the scared 13-year-old boy with the black eye and the too small clothes. The one who sat in the corner of the community center every day, reading books to escape his reality. Ray." I breathed. "Little Ray." He nodded, a sob catching in his throat. "You saved my life. You helped me get out. You believed in me when my own mother wouldn't. And then you were gone and I couldn't find you. I've had people searching for years. Diane Foster just disappeared. I got married," I said numbly. "Changed my name. Moved cities. I know that now." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, not caring about the hundreds of people watching. "I'm sorry. This is unprofessional. But when I saw the employee roster and saw Diane Hamilton listed, something made me look deeper. Your employee photo. I knew it was you. My mind was reeling. Trevor worked here. Trevor's company. Ramon had bought Trevor's company. You bought this company?" I asked. "I bought 17 companies this year," Ramon said. "But this one I bought because your husband works here. I thought if I could find him, I could find you, Trevor." The reason Ramon Pierce bought a mid-sized logistics company that barely turned a profit. The reason he was here tonight. It wasn't about business at all. I turned to look at my husband. He stood among the broken glass, his face now red with rage. The executives around him were whispering, glancing between him and me and Ramon. Brittany had stepped away from him, sensing the shift in power. "I think we have a lot to catch up on," Ramon said gently. "If you're willing. I know this is overwhelming." I couldn't form words. My brain was trying to process too much at once. The boy I'd helped decades ago. The billionaire standing in front of me. My husband's humiliation. The way Trevor had told me to stay in the back and not embarrass him. "Perhaps we could speak privately?" Ramon suggested. "I have a suite upstairs. We could talk there if you're comfortable. Or anywhere you prefer. I have so much to tell you. So much to thank you for." I looked at Trevor again. He was moving toward us now, pushing through the crowd, his face a mask of fury barely contained by the public setting. I could see what was coming. The accusations. The dismissals. He would find a way to make this my fault, to diminish it, to make me feel small again. But standing next to Ramon, remembering that scared boy I'd helped so long ago, something shifted inside me. For the first time in years I didn't feel small. "I'd like that," I said to Ramon. "I'd like to talk." Ramon smiled, relief flooding his features. He offered me his arm like I was someone important. Someone worth respect. I took it. As we walked past Trevor, I heard him say my name. Not a request. A command. "Diane." I kept walking. Behind us, I heard him call out again, louder this time. "Diane, get back here right now." Ramon paused, turned slightly. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried across the entire ballroom. "If you speak to her like that again, you'll be clearing out your desk tomorrow morning." Then he guided me toward the elevators, leaving my husband standing in a pool of spilled champagne and shattered glass, finally seeing what he'd missed all along. The elevator ride to the penthouse suite felt surreal. I stood next to Ramon Pierce, billionaire, while my mind tumbled backward through 28 years of memories. The elevator walls were mirrored and I caught sight of myself. A woman of 51 with dark brown skin that showed every year of stress I'd been carrying, hair pulled back in a simple style because Trevor said anything else looked too much. Lines around my eyes that used to be from laughter but lately were just from tiredness. Next to me, Ramon had composed himself. The tears were gone, replaced by a careful professionalism, but his hands were still shaking slightly. "I'm sorry," he said as the elevator climbed. "That was not how I planned this." "You planned this?" I asked. "Meeting you, yes. Breaking down in front of 300 people, no." A small smile touched his lips. "My therapist is going to have a field day with this." The elevator opened directly into the suite. It was spectacular. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than everything in my house combined, art on the walls that looked original. "Please sit," Ramon said, gesturing to a sofa by the windows. "Can I get you anything? Water, tea, something stronger?" "Water is fine." My voice sounded strange to my own ears. He poured 2 glasses from a crystal pitcher, his movements careful, controlled. He'd learned to move through wealthy spaces as if he belonged there. The scared boy I remembered used to make himself as small as possible, trying not to take up any room in the world. He sat across from me and for a moment we just looked at each other. "I don't know where to start," he admitted. "Start with the summer we met," I said. "I remember a lot but not everything." Ramon took a deep breath. "I was 13. My mom was using. My stepdad was violent. School had labeled me a problem kid, which meant teachers gave up on me before I even walked into their classrooms. I got into fights. Skipped school. I was angry all the time because I didn't know how to be anything else." I remembered. That's exactly how he'd been when I first saw him at the Riverside Community Center. I'd been 23, fresh out of college, volunteering for the summer before starting graduate school. The center ran afternoon programs for kids, trying to keep them off the streets and out of trouble. "You sat in the corner," I said. "Every single day. Reading whatever books you could find." "That was my escape," Ramon said. "Books were the only place I felt safe. And then you came over one day." I remembered that day so clearly now. It was August, brutally hot, and most of the kids were outside playing basketball. But one boy sat alone in the corner with a battered copy of a science fiction novel, his left eye swollen shut, a fresh bruise on his cheek. "I asked if you were okay," I said. "You were the first person who had asked me that in months," Ramon replied. "And when I said I was fine, you didn't believe me. You sat down and said, 'Want to tell me about the book instead?'" We talked for an hour that day. About the book, about other books, about anything except the bruise on his face. When I got up to leave, I'd given him my phone number, written on a scrap of paper. "If you ever need help," I'd told him. "Any kind of help. You call me." 2 weeks later, at 2 in the morning, he did. "You came and got me," Ramon said softly. "My stepdad had beaten me so badly I couldn't see out of either eye. My mom was passed out. I crawled to a neighbor's house and used their phone. You showed up in 20 minutes. I'd been terrified that night. I was just a volunteer, not a social worker, not anyone with real authority. But I couldn't leave him there. I'd taken him to the emergency room, then spent the next 2 days navigating a system I barely understood, trying to find him a safe place to stay." "You fought for me," Ramon continued. "You called everyone you could think of. You found me a foster home with Mrs. Chen who actually cared. You checked on me every week. You brought me books. You helped me with homework. You made me believe that maybe I wasn't trash like everyone said." "You were never trash," I said fiercely. "You were a smart kid in a terrible situation. That's what you told me. Over and over. Until I started to believe it." Ramon's eyes were bright again. "And then, right before school started, you told me you were leaving. Moving to Portland for graduate school." I remember feeling like the floor had dropped out from under me. I remembered that conversation too. Ray had been so quiet when I told him, his face carefully blank. I'd promised to call, to write, to stay in touch. I'd meant it. "What happened?" Ramon asked. "You just disappeared." I closed my eyes. This part was harder to talk about. My mom got sick. Cancer. I deferred graduate school and came back home to take care of her. I lived with her for 2 years. By the time she died, I was 25, broke, and I'd lost touch with everyone from that summer. I tried to find you, but Mrs. Chen had moved. The community center had closed. I didn't even know your last name was Pierce. You'd always just been Ray. "Ramon Pierce," he said. "My father's last name. The father I never met. I changed it legally when I turned 18 because I didn't want to carry my stepdad's name anymore." "I'm so sorry I lost touch," I said. "I thought about you over the years. Wondered if you were okay." "You saved my life," Ramon said simply. "Everything I have, everything I've built, it started with you believing in me. Mrs. Chen was good to me. She got me into a better school. I got a scholarship to MIT. Graduated top of my class. Started my first company at 23. But none of that happens if you don't pull me out of that house. If you don't make me believe I'm worth saving." The weight of his words settled over me. I'd been a broke 23-year-old volunteer who did one decent thing. I hadn't thought it was world-changing. I just thought it was the right thing to do. "I looked for you," Ramon said. "Once I had money, once I had resources, I hired investigators. But Diane Foster had vanished. No social media, no digital footprint. I couldn't find you. I married Trevor Hamilton when I was 29, I explained. Took his last name. We moved 3 times for his career. I deleted my social media accounts because Trevor said they were a waste of time. I just became Diane Hamilton, Trevor's wife." Something flickered across Ramon's face at the mention of Trevor. "Tell me about him." I hesitated. What was there to tell? That I'd married a man who seemed charming and successful? That over 15 years he'd slowly convinced me I was worthless? That I'd become so small in my own life I barely recognized myself? It's complicated, I finally said. The way he spoke to you downstairs wasn't complicated, Ramon said quietly. That was clear. I looked away toward the windows and the glittering city beyond. He wasn't always like that. But he is now. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Diane, Ramon said gently, I bought this company 3 weeks ago. Part of my due diligence involved reviewing key personnel. Your husband has a concerning financial history. Several investigations into expense account irregularities. Complaints from junior staff about his management style. And a personal relationship with an employee named Brittany Mills that appears to have started approximately 3 years ago. My stomach dropped. Hearing it confirmed, stated so matter-of-factly by someone else, made it real in a way I'd been avoiding. I see, I managed. I'm not telling you this to hurt you, Ramon continued. I'm telling you because when I saw your name on the employee roster, I did a deeper search. Your maiden name, your history. And I found something else. An inheritance from your mother's estate, approximately $450,000, that should have been solely in your name. But it went into a joint account 15 years ago, and over time, most of it has been transferred out into accounts in your husband's name only. The room tilted. What? I'm sorry, Ramon said. I have the documentation if you want to see it. $450,000. My mother's life insurance, her small house, everything she'd worked for. She'd left it all to me with a note that said, "Build yourself a good life, baby girl." And Trevor had taken it. Slowly, over years, while telling me I was bad with money, that he'd handle our finances, that I should just focus on keeping the house nice. He told me it went into retirement accounts, I whispered. He said we were investing it for our future. Some of it is in retirement accounts, Ramon said. In his name. The rest has been used for things like his new car, his golf club membership, and apparently a condo he purchased 2 years ago that's currently occupied by Brittany Mills. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. Trevor had stolen my inheritance and used it to set up his mistress in a condo, while telling me every day that I contributed nothing, that I was lucky he provided for me, that I should be grateful. Diane. Ramon's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Breathe. Just breathe. I forced air into my lungs. Once, twice, 3 times. I have lawyers, Ramon said quietly. The best lawyers. If you want to pursue this, we can get your money back. We can get you out of this marriage. Whatever you need. I looked at him. At this man who'd become so powerful, so successful, in part because someone had believed in him when he was at his lowest point. And now he was offering to do the same for me. Why? I asked. Why would you do all this? Because you saw me when I was invisible, Ramon said. You gave me a chance when everyone else had written me off. You showed me that I mattered. And now I see you making yourself invisible, letting someone treat you like you don't matter. I can't let that stand. I won't. Tears were rolling down my face now. I hadn't cried in front of anyone in years. Trevor hated crying. Called it manipulation. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, I admitted. You walked into a burning house at 2 in the morning to pull out a kid you barely knew, Ramon said. You're stronger than you think. We sat in silence for a long moment, the city lights twinkling below us. In one evening, my entire world had been turned upside down. The boy I'd helped had become a billionaire who'd bought my husband's company just to find me. My husband was a thief and a cheater. My whole life for the past 15 years had been built on lies. I need time, I finally said, to process this, to figure out what I want to do. Take all the time you need, Ramon said. But Diane, I want to offer you something else. Not related to your husband at all. This is separate. I looked at him questioningly. Pierce Industries is expanding our community outreach programs. I want someone to head up a new division focused on at-risk youth. Someone who understands what these kids are going through. Someone who genuinely cares. The salary is $150,000 a year plus benefits. I'm offering you the job. I haven't worked in years, I protested. Trevor said. Trevor doesn't get a vote anymore, Ramon interrupted gently. You have a degree in social work. You have experience. And you have something most people in that field don't have. You actually changed a life. You changed mine. That's not something you can teach. A job. My own money. My own purpose beyond keeping Trevor's house clean and his dinner warm. The possibility felt impossible and terrifying and wonderful all at once. I'll think about it, I said. That's all I ask. Ramon stood and handed me a business card. My personal number. Call anytime, day or night. If you need anything at all, you call me. I took the card, feeling its expensive weight in my hand. Thank you. No, Ramon said. Thank you. For everything. For then and for giving me the chance to help you now. The elevator ride back down felt different than the ride up. I wasn't the same woman who'd stepped into it 45 minutes ago. That woman had believed she was small and unimportant. This woman had just been reminded that she'd once been brave enough to fight for someone else. Maybe it was time to fight for herself. The gala was still going on when I stepped back into the ballroom, but the energy had changed. People stared as I walked through. I could hear the whispers following me. Trevor was waiting by the coat check, his face dark with rage barely controlled. We're leaving. Now. For 15 years I would have followed him. Would have apologized for somehow causing a scene. Would have made myself small again. Instead I said, you go ahead. I'll get my own ride home. Then I walked out into the night air, pulled out my phone and called a taxi. Behind me I heard Trevor shouting my name. I didn't turn around. The woman who had been invisible for so long was starting to remember how it felt to be seen. The taxi dropped me off at our house in the suburbs at 11:47 p.m. It was a nice house, the kind Trevor had insisted we buy even though it stretched our budget. Or what I'd thought was our budget. Now I wondered if anything he'd told me about our finances had been true. I sat in the driveway for 10 minutes, staring at the colonial-style home with its perfect lawn and matching shutters. Trevor loved this house. He loved what it represented. Success. Status. The kind of address you could casually mention at the office and watch people's estimation of you rise. I never loved it. It was too big, too cold, too far from anything that mattered. But Trevor had said we needed it, and I'd learned not to argue with Trevor when he'd made up his mind about something. The front door was unlocked. Trevor's Mercedes was already in the garage. I took a deep breath and walked inside. He was in the kitchen, pouring himself a drink. Scotch, expensive, the kind he only had when he was very angry or very pleased with himself. Right now his face suggested the former. Care to explain what the hell that was? His voice was quiet. That was worse than yelling. Trevor's quiet voice meant consequences. Ramon Pierce is someone I helped a long time ago, I said, setting my purse on the counter. Before I met you. Right. Some kid from a community center. Trevor downed his drink and poured another. And you just happened to make such an impression that he bought my entire company just to find you. Apparently. Don't give me that. His voice rose. Do you have any idea how humiliated I was tonight? In front of everyone who matters? The new owner ignoring me to cry over my wife like she's someone important. Maybe I am someone important. The words came out before I could stop them. Trevor's eyes went wide, then narrow. You? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're important? The woman who hasn't worked in 10 years? Who can barely organize a dinner party without something going wrong? Who I have to constantly make excuses for? Each word was designed to cut, and they did. Years of these small slices had left me bleeding in ways I couldn't even see anymore. Trevor, we need to talk about our finances. Oh, here we go. He rolled his eyes. Did your billionaire friend put ideas in your head? Tell you that you deserve more? That you should have your own money? He told me about my mother's inheritance. Trevor went very still. His hand, halfway to his glass, froze in midair. The $450,000 that was supposed to be mine, I continued, my voice surprisingly steady. The money that you said went into retirement accounts. Our retirement accounts. It did go into retirement, Trevor said, but his voice had changed. Defensive now. In your name. And some of it went into a condo. The one where Brittany Mills lives. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming in the corner. You had me investigated? Trevor's face was turning red. You went behind my back and had someone dig into our private finances? You stole from me. I managed our money. He slammed his glass down hard enough that I flinched. That money became marital property the second we got married. I invested it. I made decisions to protect our future. You bought your mistress a condo. Don't be dramatic. But he couldn't meet my eyes. Brittany is a business associate. That condo is an investment property. Trevor, I saw you two together tonight. I've seen you together 100 times. I've known for months. Then why didn't you say anything? He was on the offensive now, trying to flip this around. If you were so sure, so convinced, why not confront me? Because I was scared, I thought. Because somewhere along the way you convinced me I was crazy. That my feelings didn't matter. That I should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention you threw my way. But I didn't say that. Instead I said, I want a divorce. Trevor laughed. Actually laughed. A divorce? On what grounds? Because you think I'm having an affair? Because you're upset about financial decisions I made for our family? On the grounds that you're a thief and a liar. His hand moved so fast I didn't have time to react. The glass he'd been holding flew past my head and shattered against the cabinet behind me, spraying me with droplets of scotch and glass. I stood frozen. In 15 years of marriage, Trevor had never thrown anything before. He'd yelled, belittled, dismissed, ignored. But never this. Look what you made me do, he said, breathing hard. Look at the mess you've created. This is exactly why I don't discuss important things with you. You're too emotional. Too irrational. My hands were shaking but my voice came out clear. I'm staying at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow I'm calling a lawyer. You can't afford a lawyer. You don't have any money. Ramon offered me a job. Trevor's face went purple. Of course he did. Let me guess. Some made-up position where you can feel important while he trailed off and something ugly crossed his face. That's what this is about. You're having an affair with him. I met him tonight for the first time in 28 years. Right. And I'm supposed to believe nothing happened between you two back then? You were what, 23? You was a teenager? That's sick, Diane. The accusation was so absurd, so vile that I couldn't even respond. Ramon had been a scared 13-year-old child. I'd been his mentor, nothing more. The fact that Trevor would twist that into something ugly said everything about who he really was. I'm leaving now, I said, reaching for my purse. Trevor stepped in front of the door. You're not going anywhere. We're going to sit down and discuss this like adults. You're going to calm down and stop being hysterical. Move. No. This is my house. You don't get to just walk out. It's our house. And you can't keep me here. We stood there, facing each other in the kitchen where I'd made him dinner thousands of times, where I'd cleaned up after him, where I'd made myself small and quiet so he could feel big and important. If you walk out that door, Trevor said quietly, everything changes. I'll make sure you get nothing in the divorce. I'll tell everyone that you abandoned our marriage for some rich man. I'll make you look like a gold digger who never loved me. You already made me into nothing, I said. I don't think you can make it worse. I stepped around him. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. Diane. Let go of me. For a moment I thought he wouldn't. Then his hand dropped and I saw something new in his eyes. Fear. He was realizing, maybe for the first time, that he was losing control. I walked out the front door and didn't look back. The hotel I checked into was modest, nothing like Ramon's penthouse suite, but it was mine. I paid for it with the credit card in my own name, the one Trevor had convinced me to keep just for emergencies because we don't want to rack up debt. I sat on the bed and called the number Ramon had given me. He answered on the first ring. Diane. I need the lawyer's information, I said. And I'm accepting the job offer. What happened? His voice was sharp with concern. He threw a glass at me. Ramon's sharp intake of breath was audible. Did he hurt you? No. But he tried to stop me from leaving. I'm sending security to your location. They'll stay outside your room tonight. That's not necessary. It is to me. Please, let me do this. I was too tired to argue. Okay. I'll have my lawyer call you first thing tomorrow morning. Her name is Patricia Morrison. She's handled some very complex divorces. She'll take good care of you. Thank you. Diane, Ramon said softly, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of the hotel room and let myself cry. Not quiet tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I'd been keeping locked away for years. I cried for the young woman I'd been, the one who thought she'd found love. I cried for the years I'd wasted making myself smaller. I cried for my mother, who'd left me money hoping I'd use it to build a good life, only for it to be stolen. I cried for the dignity I'd lost piece by piece, compromise by compromise. And then, when I was done crying, I opened my laptop. Trevor always said I was bad with technology, but that was another lie. I taught myself basic coding in college. I've been good at it. I logged into our email account, the joint one we'd set up years ago. Trevor thought I didn't know the password. He'd changed it 6 months ago, but he'd written it down in his office drawer and I'd seen it. Took me 2 hours, but I found what I needed. Emails between Trevor and Brittany going back 3 years. Love letters, plans to be together, complaints about me. She's dead weight, he'd written. Once I get the promotion, I'm done. But I need to wait until it's financially smart to leave. I found emails to his accountant about transferring money from our joint accounts. Found documents showing the purchase of the condo. Found proof of everything Ramon had told me and more. I downloaded it all to a thumb drive and backed it up to a cloud account Trevor didn't know about. Then I started looking into Trevor himself. His work history. His background. The past I'd never thought to question because I'd trusted him. What I found made me go cold. Trevor had been married before. Brief. A wife in his 20s. His first wife had filed for divorce citing emotional abuse and financial irregularities. She claimed he'd stolen money from her and isolated her from her friends and family. I'd asked Trevor once if he'd been married before. He'd said no. Another lie. I kept digging and found more. A pattern. Trevor would find women who were vulnerable in some way. Smart women, but ones who'd been hurt or were isolated or were in transitional phases of life. He'd love bomb them, move fast, convince them to combine finances. And then slowly he'd take control. I'd been perfect for him. My mother had just died. I'd been grieving, alone, my graduate school plans in ruins. He'd swooped in with promises of taking care of me, of giving me stability. And like a fool I'd believed him. By the time the sun came up, I had a complete picture of who I'd been married to for 15 years. Not a man who had changed over time, but a man who'd been playing a role all along. The mask had just finally slipped. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Patricia Morrison, Ramon Pierce's attorney. I'd like to meet with you today if possible. Does 10 a.m. work? I texted back, yes. Then I took a shower, washing away the last traces of the life I'd been living. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the woman Trevor had described. I didn't see someone worthless or incompetent or lucky to be taken care of. I saw someone who'd survived. Someone who'd been systematically torn down but was still standing. Someone who'd once been brave enough to pull a child out of hell. Maybe it was time to pull myself out too. Patricia Morrison's office was downtown in one of those glass towers that scraped the sky. Everything about her screamed competence. The sharp gray suit, the immaculate office, the way she looked at me when I walked in at exactly 10 a.m. Like I was someone who mattered. Mrs. Hamilton, she said, standing to shake my hand. Her grip was firm. Please sit. Can I get you coffee, tea, water? Coffee would be wonderful. She poured from a French press on her desk, the kind of coffee that probably cost more per cup than I used to spend on groceries for a week. We sat across from each other, her desk between us covered in neat stacks of folders. Ramon briefed me on your situation, Patricia said. I want you to know that everything discussed in this office is confidential. You're my client, not Ramon. While he's covering my fees, my loyalty is to you and your interests alone. Thank you. I need to ask some difficult questions, she continued. The incident last night where your husband threw a glass. Did it hit you? No. It went past me and broke against the cabinet. But he was aiming at you? I thought about that moment. The rage in Trevor's eyes. The way his arm had moved. I think he wanted to scare me more than hurt me. But yes, it was directed at me. Has he been physically violent before? No. Just controlling. Patricia made notes on her tablet. Walk me through the financial situation. What do you know about your shared accounts? I spent the next hour laying it all out. The inheritance. The transfers. The condo. Everything I'd found in the emails last night. Patricia listened without interrupting, her expression growing grimmer as I talked. This is financial abuse, she finally said. Textbook case. You're entitled to recover the entirety of your inheritance, plus potentially damages. The affair is relevant in this state for alimony considerations. The fact that he used your money to support his mistress is particularly damaging to his case. What about the house? It's marital property, purchased during the marriage with combined funds. You're entitled to half its value. I don't want the house, I said. He loves it. I never did. I just want my mother's money back. We can work with that. Patricia pulled up a document on her computer. I took the liberty of drafting initial divorce paperwork. It asks for full return of the $450,000 from your mother's estate, plus half the value of the house and retirement accounts minus the amounts that came from your inheritance. It also asks for temporary spousal support while this is being resolved. The numbers she showed me were staggering. Even if I only got back my mother's money, I'd be okay. I'd have the foundation for a new life. There's something else, Patricia said. Ramon wanted me to discuss the job offer with you in more detail. He didn't want you to feel pressured, so he asked me to explain the terms. She slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a contract for the position of Director of Community Outreach, Pierce Industries. Salary $150,000 annually. Benefits that included health insurance, retirement matching, stock options. A signing bonus of $25,000. This is real? I asked. Very real. And before you ask, yes, you're qualified. I've seen your resume. Social work degree from a good school. 5 years of experience at various nonprofits before you stopped working. Strong references from your former supervisors. The only reason you're not working now is because your husband convinced you not to. He said no one would hire me. That I'd been out of the workforce too long. He lied. Patricia's voice was flat. People with your education and experience are in high demand in the nonprofit sector. You could have walked into a job at any point in the last 10 years. Another lie. Another piece of the cage Trevor had built around me brick by brick, year by year. There's no pressure to accept, Patricia continued. But I want you to understand that this is a legitimate offer based on your qualifications. Ramon isn't doing you a favor. He's hiring someone good for a position he needs filled. I looked at the contract again. $150,000 a year. I'd never made that much money in my life. Before I married Trevor, I'd been making $35,000 at a nonprofit, struggling to pay off student loans and help with my mother's medical bills. Can I think about it for a day? I asked. Of course. Now, about serving your husband with divorce papers. I'd like to do it at his workplace tomorrow afternoon. It's perfectly legal and will ensure he receives them. The thought of Trevor being served at work in front of his colleagues gave me a small, petty thrill. He cared so much about appearances. Do it. Excellent. Patricia smiled. It was the first time I'd seen her expression soften. You're handling this very well, Mrs. Hamilton. I don't feel like I am. That's normal. But you're taking action. You're protecting yourself. That's what strength looks like. After the meeting, I walked out into the city. It was a beautiful January day, cold but sunny. I'd lived in this city for 7 years and barely knew it. Trevor preferred the suburbs. Said downtown was too crowded, too expensive, too much. But walking the streets now, I felt alive. People rushed past on their way to lunch meetings and errands. A street musician played saxophone on the corner. A couple held hands outside a coffee shop. The world was happening all around me, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was part of it instead of watching from behind glass. My phone rang. Ramon's name on the screen. Patricia told me the meeting went well, he said when I answered. It did. Thank you for arranging everything. Are you free right now? I'd like to take you to lunch if you are. No pressure, just two old friends catching up. Two old friends. Was that what we were? We'd known each other for one summer 28 years ago. But then again, some connections transcended time. I'd like that. Great. There's a place called Riverside Bistro, corner of 5th and Main. Can you meet me there in 15 minutes? I could see the restaurant from where I was standing. I'm actually just down the street. Perfect. See you soon. The Riverside Bistro was upscale but comfortable, with brick walls and soft lighting. Ramon was already there, sitting at a corner table, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of the suit from last night. He looked younger like this. More like the person he might have become if life had been kinder to him earlier. He stood when he saw me. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the lawyer. And the job offer. We sat down, and a waiter immediately appeared with menus. Ramon ordered water and a salad. I did the same, hyper-aware that I'd spent 15 years having Trevor order for me at restaurants because you take too long to decide. Patricia is the best, Ramon said once the waiter left. She handled my own divorce 8 years ago. You were married? Briefly. I was 34, building the company, working insane hours. She was an artist I met at a gallery opening. We thought we could make it work, but I was never home and she needed someone more present. We split amicably. She's actually remarried now, very happy. Do you have kids? No. Never felt like the right time. The company always demanded everything. He paused. I regret that sometimes. But you can't build an empire and be a present parent. Something has to give. Our food arrived. For a few minutes, we ate in comfortable silence. Can I ask you something? I finally said. Why did you really buy Trevor's company? Ramon set down his fork. The honest answer? When I realized your husband worked there, I saw an opportunity. The company was undervalued, had good bones, could be profitable with the right management. So it made business sense. But yes, part of it was knowing it would give me a way to find you. That's a lot of money to spend on a maybe. Diane, I've spent millions trying to find you. I hired 3 different investigative firms over the years. I set up Google alerts for every variation of your name I could think of. Finding you wasn't a maybe. It was a necessity. The intensity in his voice made me look away. I'm not sure I understand why. Because you changed my life, Ramon said simply. And I never got to thank you properly. Never got to show you what became of that scared kid you pulled out of hell. I needed you to know that your kindness mattered. That it rippled out in ways you couldn't have imagined. I just did what anyone would do. No. His voice was firm. Most people wouldn't. Most people saw me that summer and crossed to the other side of the street. Teachers, social workers, neighbors who heard the screaming from my apartment. They all looked the other way. You didn't. I couldn't, I said. You were a kid. You needed help. And now you need help. Let me return the favor. The waiter returned to refill our water glasses. When he left, Ramon leaned forward. I want you to understand something about the job offer, he said. It's not charity. I genuinely need someone to run this program. I've been trying to launch it for 2 years, but everyone I've interviewed just sees it as a resume builder. They don't actually care about these kids. You do. You understand what it's like to be written off. That's invaluable. I haven't worked in a decade. You've been managing a household, dealing with a difficult spouse, surviving. Those are all skills that translate to the workplace. Plus, I'm not asking you to code software or perform surgery. I'm asking you to design programs for at-risk youth and manage a team. You did similar work before you stopped. Trevor said. Trevor is a liar who systematically destroyed your confidence to keep you under his control. We're not listening to Trevor anymore. The bluntness of his words was startling. And liberating. What if I fail? I asked quietly. Then we'll figure out what went wrong and fix it. That's how business works. But Diane, I don't think you're going to fail. I think you're going to be excellent at this. You just need to believe it. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe I could be that person again. The one who'd walked into a community center with confidence. The one who'd fought for a kid she barely knew because it was the right thing to do. I'll take the job, I said. But I need a week before I start. To deal with the divorce, to find a place to live. Take 2 weeks. Take a month if you need it. The position will be there when you're ready. Ramon smiled. And about housing. I own several properties in the city. There's a 2-bedroom apartment downtown that's currently vacant. It's yours rent-free for 6 months while you get back on your feet. Ramon, that's too much. It's a corporate apartment that's sitting empty. I'd rather have someone I trust living in it than leaving it vacant. Consider it part of your compensation package. I wanted to argue, but honestly I was too tired. Too many things were changing too fast. I needed somewhere safe to land while I figured out the rest of my life. Okay, I said. Thank you. I'll have my property manager send you the details. Ramon finished his salad and sat back. Now tell me about your mother. What was she like? For the next hour we talked. About my mom who'd worked 2 jobs to put me through college. About Ramon's journey from foster care to MIT to CEO. About the years in between, the choices that had led us to this moment. It felt natural, easy. Like talking to someone I'd known forever instead of someone I'd just reconnected with after nearly 3 decades. I should let you go, Ramon finally said, checking his watch. I have a board meeting in an hour. But before you leave, I want to give you something. He pulled an envelope from his bag and slid it across the table. This is the signing bonus for the job. $25,000. It's yours whether you take the position or not. Ramon? You need resources right now. Your husband controls your accounts. This gives you independence. Please take it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $25,000, made out to Diane Foster. My maiden name, I said softly. The name of the woman who saved my life, Ramon replied. It felt right. I folded the check carefully and put it in my purse. It felt like a life raft. Like possibility. Thank you, I said. For everything. For believing in me when I stopped believing in myself. That's what you did for me, Ramon said. I'm just returning the favor. We left the restaurant together. Outside, a black car was waiting for Ramon. Before he got in, he turned to me. Diane, I want you to know something. Whatever happens with the divorce, with the job, with everything, I'm here. Not as your boss. Not as someone you owe. As your friend. You're not alone in this. The words hit harder than I expected. I'd been alone for so long. Isolated by Trevor's careful maneuvering, cut off from old friends who'd slowly drifted away or who he'd convinced me weren't worth my time. I don't know how to do that anymore, I admitted. Have friends. Trust people. Then we'll figure it out together, Ramon said. One day at a time. He got into the car and drove away. I stood on the sidewalk watching it disappear into traffic, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Oh, the apartment Ramon offered was beautiful. Hardwood floors, large windows overlooking downtown, modern kitchen with appliances that actually worked. It was the complete opposite of the suburban house I'd been living in with its perfect lawn and matching shutters. This place felt like mine. I moved in the next day with just a suitcase of clothes. Everything else was still at the house with Trevor. I'd go back for it eventually, but right now I needed distance. Patricia had arranged for a locksmith to change the locks on the house, legally required since I was leaving due to safety concerns. Trevor wouldn't be able to get into the apartment even if he found out where I was living. The building had security. I was safe. The second morning in my new place, I woke up early and did something I hadn't done in years. I went for a run. Not because Trevor had suggested I needed to lose weight, which he'd been hinting at for months, but because I wanted to. Because my body was mine, and I could move it through the world however I chose. The city in the early morning was magical. Street cleaners working their routes, coffee shops just opening, the sun painting everything gold. I ran for 30 minutes, longer than I'd run in a decade, and when I got back to the apartment, I felt alive. My phone rang while I was making breakfast. Patricia. Your husband was served an hour ago, she said. At his office as planned. I felt a complicated mix of satisfaction and dread. How did he take it? According to my process server, he turned very pale, excused himself to his office and slammed the door. He's had time to read through everything now. I expect we'll hear from his attorney by end of day. What happens next? He has 30 days to respond to the petition. In the meantime, I'm filing for a restraining order to keep him away from you and requesting that he be prohibited from accessing your portion of any joint accounts. Can he fight that? He can try. But given the incident with the glass and his history of financial control, a judge will likely grant it. We're also filing a motion to freeze the condo he bought with your inheritance money so he can't sell it or transfer it before the divorce is settled. Every step felt both too fast and not fast enough. I wanted this over. I wanted my life back. But I also knew that divorce, especially one involving money and property, could drag on for months. There's something else, Patricia said. I've been digging into your husband's financials and I found some irregularities. Expense reports from his company that don't add up. Large amounts of money being claimed for business purposes that appear to be personal. I've shared this information with Pierce Industries' internal auditing team. What does that mean? It means your husband might be facing more than just a divorce. Corporate fraud is a serious matter. After we hung up, I sat with that information. Trevor hadn't just stolen from me. He'd been stealing from his employer. The man who'd acted so superior, so certain of his own importance, was just a common thief. My laptop pinged with an email. From Ramon, subject line, welcome to the team. I opened it to find a detailed welcome packet. Start date in 2 weeks. Office location. Team structure. And something unexpected. A message from my future team. Dear Diane, it began. We're so excited to welcome you as our new director. We've been operating without leadership for 6 months and morale has been tough. But after Mr. Pierce told us about your background and vision for the program, we're all energized. Can't wait to meet you. It was signed by 4 people, Jennifer, Marcus, Zoe, and Thomas. My team. People who were counting on me to lead them. The weight of it hit me. This was real. In 2 weeks I'd be going to an office. Managing people. Making decisions that mattered. After a decade of being told I was incompetent, I'd be in charge. Terror and excitement warred in my chest. I spent the rest of the day setting up the apartment. Ramon had arranged for furniture to be delivered, basic stuff to get me started. A bed, a couch, a small dining table. I hung my mother's photograph on the wall, the one from her 50th birthday where she was laughing at something my father had said before he passed. She looked happy. Proud. I hoped she'd be proud of me now. My phone rang again around 3 p.m. Unknown number. I debated not answering but something made me pick up. Diane. Trevor's voice, tight with controlled rage. We need to talk. We don't. Anything you need to say can go through my lawyer. Your lawyer. He spat the words. You mean Pierce's lawyer. Do you have any idea what you've done? I filed for divorce from a man who stole from me and cheated on me. That's what I've done. I didn't steal anything. That money was ours. We were married. The law disagrees. So does the forensic accountant Patricia hired. Silence. Then, you're making a huge mistake. You think Pierce cares about you? He's using you to get back at me for something. I don't know what, but this is all part of some game. This isn't about you, Trevor. Shockingly, not everything is. I'm going to fight this, he said. I'm going to drag this out until you have nothing left. Every penny you think you're getting, I'm going to make you work for it. And when this is done, everyone will know what kind of person you really are. A person who escaped? I said. I can live with that. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt oddly calm. Trevor could threaten all he wanted. I had a good lawyer, documentation of everything he'd done, and for the first time in years, I had resources of my own. That evening, Patricia called again. Your husband's attorney reached out, she said. They're proposing a settlement. He keeps the house and his retirement accounts. You get your mother's inheritance back, but nothing else. No spousal support, no share of the marital assets beyond what your mother left you. That's ridiculous. I'm entitled to half of everything. Exactly. They're lowballing you, hoping you'll be scared enough to take it. Standard intimidation tactic. How do you want to respond? I thought about it. About Trevor sitting in our house in his office making this calculation. Assuming I'd fold. That I'd take whatever he offered out of fear or exhaustion, or that old ingrained belief that I didn't deserve more. Tell them no. Tell them I want everything we discussed. My inheritance, half the house value, half the retirement accounts that aren't from my inheritance, and 2 years of spousal support. You're sure? This could get ugly. It's already ugly. I want what I'm owed. That's my girl, Patricia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I'll send the response tomorrow. After dinner, I walked down to the building's gym. Another amenity I'd never had access to. Trevor had a gym membership at an exclusive club downtown, but I'd never been invited to join. It's a networking space, he'd explained. Not really appropriate for spouses. The building gym was empty. I got on a treadmill and started running. Slowly at first, then faster. I ran until my legs burned and my lungs ached and sweat poured down my face. I ran until I couldn't think about Trevor or the divorce or how scared I was about starting a new job. When I finally stopped, breathing hard, I caught sight of myself in the mirrored wall. My hair was a mess, my face was red, my cheap workout clothes were soaked through. But I was smiling. Actually smiling. For the first time in years, I recognized the woman looking back at me. The next morning, I opened a new bank account at a different bank than the one Trevor and I had used. I deposited Ramon's check, watching the numbers appear on the screen. $25,000. More money than I'd had in my own name since before I got married. The bank teller, a young woman with bright red hair, smiled at me. Starting fresh? Something like that. Good for you. I see a lot of women come in here, same situation. Takes courage. I hadn't thought about it as courage. It felt more like survival. But maybe that's what courage was. Just surviving when it would be easier to give up. I spent the week preparing for my new job. I read everything I could find about Pierce Industries community programs. I researched best practices for at-risk youth outreach. I made lists and plans and rewrote them a dozen times. On Friday, Patricia called with news. The judge granted the restraining order. Your husband has to stay at least 500 feet away from you. He's also prohibited from contacting you directly. All communication goes through attorneys now. What about the house? You're allowed to go get your personal belongings. I'm arranging for a police escort tomorrow at 2 p.m. You'll have 2 hours to collect whatever you want. Your husband will not be present. The thought of going back to that house made my stomach twist. But I needed my things. My mother's jewelry. My books. The photo albums from before I met Trevor. I'll be ready. Saturday afternoon, a police cruiser pulled up outside my apartment building. Officer Martinez, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, got out and introduced herself. Miss Foster? I'm here to escort you to collect your belongings. Miss Foster. Not Mrs. Hamilton. I was reclaiming my name piece by piece. The drive to the suburbs felt strange, like visiting a place I'd lived in a previous life. The streets I'd driven down 1,000 times looked different now. Smaller somehow. Less important. Officer Martinez parked in the driveway behind my old car. Trevor's Mercedes was gone. He'd been required to leave for the duration of the pickup. I unlocked the door with my key. It still worked. The house smelled the same, looked the same. But it didn't feel like home. Maybe it never had. Take your time, Officer Martinez said. I'll be right here if you need anything. I moved through the rooms methodically. Bedroom first, packing clothes into suitcases. Then my mother's jewelry box from the dresser, the photo albums from the closet. In Trevor's office I paused. His computer was there, probably full of evidence. But Patricia had already subpoenaed his files. I didn't need to touch anything. In the basement I found boxes of my old stuff. Things from before the marriage. My college textbooks. Journals I'd kept in my 20s. Art supplies I'd loved before Trevor convinced me I wasn't creative. I carried it all to the car, load after load. Officer Martinez helped with the heavy boxes. We didn't talk much, but her presence was comforting. On my last trip through, I walked through each room one more time. The kitchen where Trevor had thrown the glass. The living room where we'd hosted dinner parties for his colleagues while I smiled and served and stayed quiet. The bedroom where I'd lain awake so many nights wondering what was wrong with me. Nothing was wrong with me. The house was the cage and I was finally free. I locked the door behind me and dropped the key in the mailbox. Back at my apartment, surrounded by boxes of my old life, I felt something shift. These weren't just belongings. They were pieces of the person I used to be. The person I was going to become again. I found one of my old journals and opened it to a random page. An entry from when I was 24, right after my mom died. I feel lost. But I know Mom wouldn't want me to give up. She always said I was strong. I need to remember that. I need to build the life she wanted for me. A good life. A full life. A life that matters. I'd forgotten I wrote that. Forgotten that version of myself who believed she could do hard things. But she was still here. She'd just been buried under years of Trevor's manipulation. Now she was clawing her way back to the surface. I made myself dinner in my new kitchen. Nothing fancy, just pasta and vegetables. But I ate it at my own table in my own space on my own terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Ramon. How did the pickup go? Good. Got everything I needed. Glad to hear it. Start date is coming up. Any questions about the job? A million. But I'll figure it out. That's the spirit. See you Monday after next. I set the phone down and looked around my apartment. It wasn't much yet, but it was mine. My space, my rules, my life. I was 51 years old and starting over. Most people would say that was scary. And it was. But it was also the most alive I'd felt in years. Trevor's lawyer called for an in-person meeting. Patricia advised against it, but I insisted. I needed to look Trevor in the eye one more time. Needed him to see that I wasn't afraid anymore. We met at Patricia's office, neutral ground. Trevor showed up with his attorney, a thin man in an expensive suit named Gerald Chambers. Trevor looked terrible. His hair was uncombed, his suit wrinkled. Dark circles under his eyes. Part of me felt sorry for him. The rest of me remembered the condo he'd bought for Brittany with my mother's money. Thank you for coming, Patricia said, gesturing for everyone to sit. We arranged ourselves around her conference table, Trevor and Gerald on one side, Patricia and me on the other. A divided line down the middle. Let's get straight to it, Gerald said. My client is willing to increase his settlement offer. He'll return 75% of the inherited funds plus sign over his portion of the house. In exchange, Mrs. Hamilton drops all other claims and agrees not to pursue charges related to the marital assets. That's not even close to what we asked for, Patricia said coolly. It's a generous offer considering the circumstances. The circumstances being that your client committed theft and adultery? Trevor's jaw tightened. I didn't commit theft. We were married. The money was joint property. The money was inherited by my client specifically, Patricia countered. Under state law, that makes it her separate property. You transferred it without her knowledge or consent. That's theft. I managed our finances. She gave me permission. Show me the paperwork where she authorized you to transfer funds to purchase a condo for your mistress. Silence. I watched Trevor's face cycle through emotions. Anger, frustration, and underneath it all, fear. He was cornered and he knew it. Brittany is not my mistress, he finally said. That's just gossip. We have 3 years of emails, Patricia said. Love letters. Plans to leave my client once you secured a promotion. Photos of you and Ms. Mills together that were certainly not taken at business events. Would you like me to continue? Trevor's lawyer raised a hand. Perhaps we should focus on reaching an agreement rather than rehashing accusations. Then perhaps your client should stop lying, Patricia said. Here's our position. Full return of the $450,000 inheritance plus interest. Half the equity in the house. Half the retirement accounts that don't come from the inheritance. 2 years of spousal support at $3,000 per month. My client also retains her car. That's absurd, Gerald said. We're talking about nearly $1 million. We're talking about what my client is legally entitled to after 15 years of marriage. If anything, we're being generous. We could pursue fraud charges for the money he embezzled from Pierce Industries. Trevor's head snapped up. What are you talking about? The expense reports, I said quietly. It was the first time I'd spoken since sitting down. The ones where you claimed business meals and travel that were actually personal. Taking Brittany to expensive restaurants on the company card. The weekend trips to ski resorts marked as client meetings. Pierce Industries' auditing team has all of it. Trevor's face went white. You had them investigate me? They investigated on their own once the discrepancies came to light, Patricia said. My client had nothing to do with it. That's a separate matter that doesn't involve this divorce proceeding. Although if criminal charges are filed, it could certainly impact the settlement discussions. Gerald whispered something to Trevor, who shook his head violently. They argued in low voices while Patricia and I waited. Finally, Gerald spoke. We need time to consult with our client and review the allegations regarding his employment. Can we reconvene next week? You have until Friday, Patricia said. After that, we file motions to compel discovery on all of Mr. Hamilton's financial dealings for the past 15 years. All of them. The meeting broke up. Trevor stood and looked at me across the table. For a moment, neither of us moved. Can I speak to my wife privately? He asked. No, Patricia said. Just 5 minutes? Please. I looked at Patricia, who shook her head. But something in me wanted to hear what Trevor had to say. Wanted to see if there was any shred of the man I thought I'd married all those years ago. It's okay, I said. 5 minutes. You can stay in the room. Patricia frowned but nodded. I'll be right here. If you want to stop the conversation at any time, just say so. Gerald left, closing the door behind him. Trevor waited until we heard his footsteps fade down the hall. Diane, he started. This has gotten out of control. We don't have to destroy each other. You destroyed us, I said. I'm just cleaning up the mess. I made mistakes. I know that. But we had 15 good years before. Before what? Before I found out you were stealing from me? Cheating on me? We didn't have 15 good years, Trevor. We had 15 years where you systematically broke me down until I believed I was worthless. That's not fair. It's completely fair. My voice was steady. Calm. You told me I was bad with money, so I let you handle everything. You told me I wasn't smart enough to work, so I stayed home. You told me my friends were bad influences, so I stopped seeing them. Every single choice you made was designed to isolate me and make me dependent on you. I was trying to protect you, Trevor said, but his voice lacked conviction. From what? Having my own life? Having my own identity? He sat down heavily, his shoulders slumping. Ramon Pierce. That's what this is really about, isn't it? He swoops in with his billions and his job offer, and suddenly I'm the villain. You were the villain long before Ramon showed up. He just helped me see it clearly. Are you sleeping with him? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. No, Trevor. Unlike you, I don't cheat on my spouse. Then what? Why is he doing all this for you? Because I helped him when he was a kid. Because he believes in returning kindness. Because he sees value in me that you spent 15 years trying to erase. Trevor's hands clenched into fists on the table. This is all wrong. You're supposed to be home, waiting for me to come to my senses. We're supposed to work this out. Why would I want to work it out? So I can go back to being invisible? To making myself small so you can feel big? I never asked you to be small. You asked me to stay in the back of the room at that gala. To not embarrass you. To not exist where important people could see me. That's the definition of asking someone to be small. He had no response to that. We sat in silence for a long moment. I loved you, I finally said. At least I loved who I thought you were. But that person either never existed or disappeared a long time ago. I don't even know which would be worse. I love you, Trevor said. I know I don't show it well, but I do. Love doesn't steal. Love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't make someone feel worthless. Whatever you think you feel for me, it's not love. Patricia cleared her throat gently. Time's up. Trevor stood slowly. At the door he turned back. You're going to regret this. When Pierce gets tired of his pet project, when the job doesn't work out, when you realize you're alone at 51 with no one to take care of you, you're going to wish you'd worked this out with me. If I end up alone, I'll still be better off than I was with you, I said. At least I'll have my dignity. He left without another word. Patricia waited until we heard the elevator doors close. You okay? Yeah, I said. And I meant it. I'm okay. That thing he said about being alone. That was designed to hurt you. I know. But he's wrong. I'm not alone. For the first time in years, I have people in my corner. I have you. I have Ramon. I have myself again. That's more than I've had in a long time. Patricia smiled. Good. Now let's talk strategy. That threat about pursuing all his financial dealings? We're going to follow through on that whether he settles or not. I want him to know there are consequences for what he did. Over the next few days, Patricia's investigation uncovered more. Trevor had been embezzling from Pierce Industries for almost 2 years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones as he got bolder. Expense reports for dinners that never happened. Travel that was never taken. Equipment purchases that were never delivered. In total, nearly $80,000. Ramon's CFO called me directly. We're filing charges. I wanted you to know before it becomes public. I understand, I said. I'm sorry this happened. I know he's your husband. Ex-husband, I corrected. And I appreciate you pursuing this. He needs to face consequences. The news broke 2 days later. Local business reporter got wind of the investigation and ran a story, Pierce Industries VP accused of embezzlement. Trevor's name was all over it, along with details of the affair and the divorce. My phone exploded with messages. Old friends I hadn't heard from in years, reaching out to check on me. Some were genuine. Others were just fishing for gossip. I ignored most of them. But there was one message that mattered. From Sandra, my best friend from college who I'd lost touch with after marrying Trevor. He'd convinced me she was jealous of our relationship, that she was trying to cause problems. Looking back, I realized Sandra had just been trying to warn me. I saw the news. Are you okay? Can we talk? I called her immediately. She picked up on the first ring. Diane? Hi, Sandra. Oh my God. Her voice cracked. I've been so worried about you for years. But every time I reached out, you seemed distant, and I thought you didn't want me around anymore. I'm sorry. Trevor isolated me from everyone. I didn't see it happening until it was done. Are you safe? Where are you staying? We talked for 2 hours. I told her everything. She cried with me, raged on my behalf, and then helped me make a plan. She was a real estate agent now, successful and sharp. She offered to help me look for a permanent place to live once the divorce settled. You're not staying in a corporate apartment forever, she said. You're going to have your own home. Your own space. A place that's completely yours. That sounds amazing. It's going to be amazing. You're going to be amazing. I always knew you were stronger than Trevor gave you credit for. After we hung up, I felt lighter. Like I was gathering pieces of my old life back, one by one. The next morning, Patricia called. Gerald reached out. They want to settle. Full return of the inheritance, half the house, half the untainted retirement funds, and 18 months of spousal support at $2,500 per month. That's close to what we asked for. It is. They're scared of what else we might find if this goes to trial. I think we should take it. I thought about pushing for more. About making Trevor pay for every lie, every manipulation. But mostly I just wanted it over. Okay, I said. Let's settle. I'll draw up the papers. This should be finalized within 30 days. When I hung up, I realized I was shaking. Not from fear or anger. From relief. It was almost over. The marriage, the lies, the cage Trevor had built around me. All of it was ending. I walked to the window of my apartment and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Trevor was probably furious. Probably plotting his next move. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had a new job starting in 3 days. A new life taking shape. And for the first time in 15 years, I was excited about the future instead of dreading it. The woman who'd been invisible was learning how to be seen again. And it turned out she liked what she saw. My first day at Pierce Industries started with a panic attack. I stood outside the building at 8:45 a.m., dressed in a green blazer and black pants I'd bought with some of Ramon's signing bonus. Professional but comfortable. My mother would have been proud. But I couldn't make my feet move toward the entrance. What if I was terrible at this? What if Trevor had been right and I couldn't handle real work anymore? What if I let down Ramon and the team counting on me? My phone buzzed. Text from Ramon, "You're probably standing outside having second thoughts. Stop it. You've got this. 3rd floor, take a right off the elevator. I'll meet you there." I looked up at the building. Sure enough, there was Ramon in a window on the 3rd floor, phone in hand, waving at me. I couldn't help but smile. He'd known exactly what I'd be doing. I walked inside. The lobby was beautiful. Modern and clean with comfortable furniture and art on the walls. The security guard checked my ID and gave me a temporary badge. "Welcome to Pierce Industries, Miss Foster." Miss Foster. My name. My identity. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt both too long and too short. When the doors opened, Ramon was waiting. "There she is," he said, smiling. "Ready for day one?" "As ready as I'll ever be." He led me down a hallway lined with offices. People looked up as we passed, curious and friendly. Ramon stopped at a door with my name on it. Diane Foster, Director of Community Outreach. Your office? He said, pushing the door open. It was perfect. Not huge, but spacious enough. A desk with a computer, bookshelves, a window overlooking the city. On the desk was a small plant and a card that said, "Welcome to the team." Jennifer picked out the plant, Ramon said. She's your deputy director. You'll meet her in a few minutes. First, let's get you set up with IT and HR. The next 2 hours were a blur of paperwork and passwords and orientation materials. Then Ramon brought me to a conference room where 4 people waited. Everyone, this is Diane Foster, your new director. Diane, meet your team. Jennifer was in her 30s, energetic and warm. She had worked as an interim director for 6 months while they searched for someone permanent. I'm so glad you're here, she said, shaking my hand. I was drowning trying to do 2 jobs at once. Marcus was quiet and thoughtful, late 20s. He handled data analysis and program evaluation. Thomas was the oldest on the team, mid-50s, in charge of partnerships and fundraising. And Zoe was fresh out of college, enthusiastic and idealistic, running the volunteer coordinator program. We've been really excited to meet you, Zoe said. Mr. Pierce told us about your background. Working with at-risk youth is exactly what this program needs. We spent the morning in the conference room while they caught me up on everything. Current programs, challenges they were facing, dreams they had for expansion. I took notes furiously, asked questions, tried to absorb it all. By lunch, my head was spinning. You okay? Jennifer asked as everyone else left for the cafeteria. Overwhelmed, I admitted. This is a lot. It is. But you don't have to figure it all out today. We've got time. She hesitated. Can I be honest? Please. We were scared when Mr. Pierce said he was hiring someone from outside instead of promoting me. But then he explained your background and I got it. You have something none of us have. Real experience with these kids. Not just theory or good intentions. You know what it's like. I helped one kid 28 years ago, I said. I'm not sure that qualifies me to run a whole program. It qualifies you to understand what matters. The rest we can figure out together. Jennifer smiled. Plus, I've been doing this job for 6 months. I can help you navigate the corporate side while you bring the vision and heart. Deal? Deal. We shook on it. The afternoon was meetings. Budget review with finance. Partnership discussions with local nonprofits. A video call with the mayor's office about a new youth employment initiative. My brain felt like it was going to explode. At 5 p.m. I collapsed into my office chair. My feet hurt. My head hurt. I'd drunk too much coffee and not enough water. But I'd done it. I'd survived day 1. There was a knock on my door. Ramon poked his head in. How was it? Terrifying and amazing. He laughed. That sounds about right. First days always are. Listen, there's a company happy hour happening downstairs. You should come. I don't know. Not as my guest. As part of the team. They'd like to get to know you. I thought about it. The old Diane would have said no, would have rushed home to make dinner and wait for Trevor to come home and tell her about his important day. But the old Diane was gone. Okay, I said. Just for one drink. The company bar was on the ground floor, a casual space with craft beer and comfortable seating. About 30 people were there, mostly from the community outreach division but a few from other departments. Jennifer waved me over to her group. Diane, come meet some people. For the next hour, I talked and laughed and actually relaxed. These were good people. Smart, passionate about their work, genuinely interested in what I brought to the table. No one treated me like I was Trevor's wife or Ramon's charity case. They treated me like a colleague. Like I belonged. I left at 6:30, pleasantly tired and surprisingly happy. The walk back to my apartment took 20 minutes. I discovered I loved walking in the city, loved being part of the energy and movement. Sandra had texted, "How was day 1? Good. Really good. Proud of you. Want to get dinner this week? Yes. That would be great." I made a simple dinner, took a long shower, and crawled into bed early. Tomorrow was day 2, then day 3, then a whole new life stretching out ahead of me. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Work from 9 to 5, sometimes later. Dinner with Sandra or Jennifer or sometimes Ramon when he had time. Gym sessions where I pushed myself harder each time. Weekends exploring the city or reading in coffee shops. I was building a life. Not the life I'd planned when I married Trevor, but a better one. One that was actually mine. At work, I started to find my footing. I launched a mentorship program pairing at-risk teens with successful professionals. I secured funding for an after-school program in 3 underserved neighborhoods. I hired 2 new staff members who brought fresh energy to the team. Jennifer became not just a colleague but a friend. We had lunch together most days, talking about work and life and everything in between. She was divorced too, had been through her own version of reclaiming herself. "You remind me of me 3 years ago," she said one afternoon. "That look of someone who's just remembered they're allowed to take up space in the world. Is it that obvious? Only to people who've been there." She smiled. "You're doing great, by the way. The team loves you. The programs are working. You're exactly what this division needed." 1 month in, Ramon called me to his office. "How are you settling in?" he asked. "Really well. Better than I expected." "Good. Because I want to expand your role. I'm seeing the impact you're making and I think we can do more. I'd like to increase your budget by 40% and give you permission to hire 3 more staff members." That's a lot of faith to put in someone who's been here a month. It's a lot of faith to put in someone who's proven she knows what she's doing. "Say yes, Diane." "Yes." He grinned. "Excellent. Now there's something else. More personal. How are you doing with the divorce?" "With everything?" "The divorce should be finalized next week. Once the paperwork goes through, I'll officially be Diane Foster again." "How does that feel?" "Like I'm getting my life back." I paused. "Can I ask you something? Why have you done all this for me? The job, the apartment, the support. It's more than just paying back a kindness." Ramon leaned back in his chair. "When I was a kid, you showed me that someone could see me as more than my circumstances. That I had value beyond what anyone else thought. I spent 30 years trying to become someone worthy of that belief. And then I find you and you're living small, letting someone diminish you. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't let the person who saved me waste away in a marriage that was killing her spirit. I wasn't dying. You weren't living either. There's a difference." He met my eyes. "You gave me permission to dream big when I was 13. I just wanted to return the favor." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Thank you. For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. That's what you did for me. I'm just reflecting it back." The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday afternoon. Patricia called with the news. "It's done. The judge signed off on everything. You're officially divorced." Just like that. Just like that. "The funds from the settlement should hit your account within 48 hours. You're free, Diane." Free. The word echoed in my head. After 15 years, I was free. That evening, Sandra took me out to celebrate. We went to a nice restaurant downtown, the kind Trevor would have said was too expensive or too trendy or too something. "To new beginnings," Sandra said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed. We drank wine and ate good food and laughed until my stomach hurt. At one point, Sandra grabbed my hand across the table. "I'm so proud of you," she said. "For getting out. For rebuilding. For becoming yourself again. I couldn't have done it without help." "Yes, you could have. You just didn't have to. That's different." On the way home, I walked past the building where Trevor's office was. The lights were off. I wondered where he was, what he was doing. If he thought about me at all. But mostly I didn't care. 3 months after starting at Pierce Industries, I got an email from a woman named Alicia. She'd seen an article about our mentorship program and wanted to share her story. 20 years ago, she'd been a troubled teenager in the foster system. A volunteer at a community center had taken an interest in her, helped her apply to college, believed in her when no one else did. That volunteer's name was Diane Foster. I didn't remember Alicia at first. But when she described herself as the quiet girl who always sat by the window reading, it came back. Another kid from that same summer I'd met, Ramon. "You changed my life," her email said. "I'm a doctor now. I have 3 kids. I'm happy. And it started with you seeing me. I just wanted you to know that your kindness mattered. It rippled out in ways you probably never knew." I sat at my desk and cried. Happy tears for once. That evening, I forwarded the email to Ramon with a simple message. Apparently I made a difference to more than one kid that summer. He wrote back immediately, "You made a difference to everyone you met. You just didn't know it. That's the best kind of difference." I printed Alicia's email and pinned it to my office wall. A reminder that small acts of kindness could echo across decades. That believing in someone could save them. That I had value, always had, even when I couldn't see it. The woman who'd been invisible was visible now. Not because someone else gave her permission, but because she'd remembered she never needed permission in the first place. Trevor's arraignment happened on a cold February morning. I didn't attend, but Patricia called me afterward with an update. "He pleaded not guilty to all charges," she said. "But the evidence is overwhelming. His lawyer is already talking about a plea deal. What does that mean for him? Likely a few years of probation, restitution to Pierce Industries community service. Possibly some jail time, though first-time offenders with white-collar crimes often avoid incarceration if they cooperate. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Trevor had made his choices. Now he was facing the consequences. How's he doing financially? I asked. Not well. The legal fees are eating him alive. His new lawyer isn't cheap, and without the income from Pierce Industries he's struggling. He had to list the house for sale. Brittany left him 3 weeks ago. Left him? According to my sources, she realized he wasn't the wealthy executive she thought he was. Once the money dried up and the scandal broke, she moved on. She's already dating someone else at the company. Different department. So Brittany had been using Trevor just as much as he'd been using me. There was a certain poetry to that. The condo he bought her? Patricia continued. That's being sold too as part of the restitution agreement. He's going to end up in a small apartment somewhere, working whatever job he can find that doesn't require a background check for financial crimes. Good, I said. And I meant it. Over the next few weeks, I heard updates through the professional grapevine. Trevor had been blacklisted in the industry. No reputable company would touch him after the embezzlement charges. He'd been forced to take a job in retail management, making a fraction of what he used to earn. His friends from the golf club stopped returning his calls. The colleagues who'd laughed at his jokes and networked over drinks disappeared. Trevor had built his identity on status and appearances, and now both were gone. Jennifer heard he'd showed up drunk to a charity event where several of his former colleagues were present. He tried to corner Ramon, demanding to know why he'd ruined his life. What did Ramon do? I asked. Had security escort him out. Very calmly, very professionally. Apparently Trevor was shouting about how none of this was fair, how he'd been set up, how you were the one who destroyed everything. Of course he was. The best part? Jennifer grinned. Brittany was there with her new boyfriend. She walked right past Trevor like he didn't exist. I should have felt victorious. This was karma at its finest. The man who'd controlled and diminished me for 15 years was now experiencing his own downfall. But mostly I just felt tired of thinking about him. Can we talk about something else? I asked. Absolutely. Did you see the proposal for the summer youth program? I think with your approval we could launch it in May. We spent the rest of lunch discussing work. Real work that mattered. Programs that would help kids who needed it. The kind of thing I actually wanted to spend my energy on. That evening I met Sandra for dinner. She'd found me 3 possible apartments to look at, places I could afford with my salary and the settlement money. This one is my favorite, she said, showing me photos on her phone. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, balcony overlooking the park. It's in your price range and the building has great amenities. It's beautiful. Want to see it this weekend? Yes, definitely. We were looking at the photos when my phone rang. A known number. I debated not answering, but something made me pick up. Diane? It's Gerald Chambers, Trevor's attorney. My stomach sank. Mr. Chambers. Why are you calling me directly? I apologize for the intrusion. But I wanted to give you a heads up. Trevor violated the restraining order this morning. He went to your old apartment building and tried to get the doorman to let him up. What? Why? He claims he needs to talk to you. That you're the only one who can help him. Help him with what? He's convinced that if you speak to Ramon Pierce, you can get the charges dropped. He thinks Mr. Pierce filed them to get back at him for how he treated you. I almost laughed. That's not how criminal charges work. I've explained that. Multiple times. But he's not listening. The police were called when he refused to leave the building. He's been arrested for violating the restraining order. Good. There was a pause. Miss Foster, I'm telling you this because I think he's having some kind of breakdown. He's not thinking clearly. I wanted you to be aware in case he tries to contact you again. The restraining order will be extended. But I've seen cases where that doesn't stop someone who's desperate. Just be careful. After I hung up, Sandra was looking at me with concern. What was that about? I told her. She immediately pulled out her phone. I'm calling a security company. You need cameras on your door and a panic button. Sandra, that's extreme. Trevor showed up at your building after being specifically told to stay away. He's desperate and unstable. That's not extreme. That's smart. She was right. I let her make the calls. The security company came out the next day and installed a camera at my door and gave me a panic button that would alert both building security and 911 if pressed. They also walked me through safety protocols. Has he tried to contact you any other way? The installer asked. No. Just the one incident at the building. Good. Keep it that way. Block his number, block his email, block any way he has to reach you directly. All communication should go through lawyers or law enforcement. I followed his advice. I blocked Trevor's number, his email, even his social media accounts, though I hadn't looked at those in months. A week later, I got a strange Facebook message request from an account with no profile picture and a generic name. It said, "This is Trevor. Please just talk to me for 5 minutes. I need to explain." I blocked that account too and reported it to the police as a violation of the restraining order. Trevor was served with an additional charge for harassment. His bail was revoked, and he spent 3 days in jail before his lawyer could get him out. Patricia called me after it happened. He's spiraling. The judge gave him a stern warning that any more violations will result in serious jail time. I think that finally got through to him. I hope so. There's something else. Trevor's ex-wife from his first marriage reached out to me. She heard about the case and wanted to offer testimony about similar patterns of behavior. Financial control, isolation, emotional abuse. The prosecutor is considering adding her statement to the file. So there had been others. Trevor's behavior wasn't a one-time thing or a relationship that had soured over time. This was who he was. A man who found vulnerable women and systematically broke them down. I thought about the woman I'd been when I met him. Grieving my mother, alone, looking for stability. He'd seen all that and decided I was the perfect target. But he'd been wrong. I wasn't perfect prey. I was a survivor. And now I was thriving. At work, I was launching new programs every month. The mentorship initiative had matched 50 teenagers with professionals in various fields. Early data showed the kids were staying in school, their grades were improving, they had hope for the future. The after-school program was operating in 5 neighborhoods now. We provided homework help, meals, safe spaces for kids who had nowhere else to go. The waiting list was growing. Ramon approved my request for additional funding. The board is impressed with what you've accomplished, he told me. They want to expand community outreach to other cities. I'd like you to lead that expansion. Other cities? Portland first, then maybe Seattle and Denver. We'd establish satellite offices, hire local teams, but you'd oversee the whole operation. It's a significant promotion. VP of Community Outreach for the entire company. My head spun. Vice President. A year ago, I'd been the wife who stayed in the back of the room to avoid embarrassment. Now I was being offered a VP position at a major corporation. I need time to think about it. Take all the time you need. But Diane, you're ready for this. You've proven it. That evening, I sat on my new apartment's balcony, the one Sandra had helped me find. I'd moved in 2 weeks ago. The space was mine, decorated with things I liked, filled with furniture I'd chosen. No traces of Trevor anywhere. I thought about Ramon's offer. About what it would mean to take on more responsibility. To travel to other cities, build programs from scratch, lead a larger team. A year ago, the thought would have terrified me. Trevor had convinced me I couldn't handle basic household management, let alone a corporate leadership role. But I'd spent the last 6 months proving him wrong every single day. I called Ramon. I'll take the promotion, I said. On one condition. Name it. Jennifer comes with me as Deputy VP. She's been essential to everything we've built. I'm not doing this without her. Done. I'll have HR draw up the paperwork for both of you. After we hung up, I called Sandra. I got promoted, I said. She squealed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Details? Tell me everything. I told her about the new role, the expansion plans, the increase in salary that would let me finally feel financially secure. You're amazing, Sandra said. Do you know that? You're actually amazing. I'm just doing my job. No, you're building something meaningful while your ex-husband falls apart. That's not just doing your job. That's winning. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was what winning looked like. Not revenge or vindication or seeing Trevor suffer. But building a life so full and meaningful that he became irrelevant. The last I heard about Trevor was 3 months later. He'd taken a plea deal on the embezzlement charges. 2 years probation, restitution to Pierce Industries, and 200 hours of community service. No jail time, but a felony on his record that would follow him forever. His lawyer sent a formal apology letter to me as part of the plea agreement. Trevor had been required to write it and have his lawyer deliver it. Dear Diane, it began. I recognize now that I treated you poorly during our marriage. I took advantage of your trust and kindness. I mismanaged your inheritance and carried on an inappropriate relationship with a colleague. These were wrong choices and I take full responsibility for the pain I caused you. I wish you well in your future endeavors. It was perfunctory, emotionless. The kind of apology written by a lawyer to check a box. There was no real remorse, no actual understanding of what he'd done. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I filed the letter away and went back to work. Back to the life I was building. The life Trevor no longer had any part of. Jennifer and I were in Seattle setting up our second satellite office. We'd hired a local team, secured office space, established partnerships with schools and community organizations. The work was hard but fulfilling. On our last night in the city, we had dinner at a restaurant overlooking the water. Do you ever think about him? Jennifer asked. Trevor? Sometimes, I admitted. But mostly I think about how different my life is now. How much better. You know what I think? I think his worst punishment isn't the legal stuff. It's knowing that you're thriving without him. That everything he said about you was wrong. She was right. Trevor had spent years telling me I was nothing without him. That I couldn't work, couldn't manage money, couldn't make decisions. He'd built his identity on being superior to me. And now I was a vice president at a major corporation, earning more than he ever had, doing work that actually mattered. While he was working retail and trying to rebuild a life he'd destroyed. The best revenge wasn't seeing him suffer. It was being so successful that he became an irrelevant footnote in the story of my life. Trevor had fallen. But I had risen. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. Spring came to the city in bursts of color. Cherry blossoms lined the streets, and the park near my apartment filled with people enjoying the sunshine. I'd been in my VP role for 3 months, and the expansion was going better than anyone had expected. Portland's office was thriving. Seattle was off to a strong start. Denver would launch next month. The mentorship program had expanded to 200 matches across 3 cities. We were making a real difference in kids' lives, and I could see it in the data and the stories that came back to us. Jennifer had moved to Seattle to oversee the Northwest operations. We talked daily, but I miss having her in the office. Her replacement, a sharp woman named Keisha from Portland, was excellent, but it wasn't the same. On a Wednesday afternoon, Ramon's assistant called. Mr. Pierce would like to see you in his office when you have a moment. I finished the budget report I was working on and headed upstairs. Ramon's office took up half the top floor, with windows overlooking the entire city. He was standing at one of them when I walked in, hands in his pockets, looking thoughtful. You wanted to see me? I asked. He turned, smiling. Yes. Come in, close the door. I did, suddenly nervous. The last time he'd called me to his office like this, he'd offered me the VP promotion. What could possibly come next? Sit, please. He gestured to the seating area rather than the formal desk, a sign this was a personal conversation rather than business. I sat on the sofa. He took the chair across from me. How are you, Diane? Really? I'm good. Busy but good. The Denver launch is on track, and we're already getting inquiries from other cities wanting to know if we'll expand there too. That's not what I meant. His eyes were serious. How are you? It's been almost a year since the gala. Since everything changed. How are you handling it all? I thought about it. I'm happy. That probably sounds simple, but I am. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I'm just happy. Good. You deserve that. He paused, seemed to gather his thoughts. I need to tell you something. And I need you to hear the whole thing before you respond. My heart started beating faster. Okay. Over the past year working with you, getting to know you as an adult rather than the young volunteer I remember, I've developed feelings for you. Real feelings. The kind that keep me up at night and make me smile when your name shows up on my calendar. I opened my mouth, but he held up a hand. Let me finish. I know this is complicated. You're my employee. You're going through a major life transition. You've made it clear you need to find yourself again, and I respect that. So here's what I need you to know. I have these feelings, but I will never act on them unless you want me to. Our friendship matters more to me than anything else. The work we're doing matters. I would never jeopardize either of those things. He took a breath. But I also can't keep pretending I see you as just a colleague or just an old friend. Because you're more than that to me. And I needed to be honest about it. Silence filled the room. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel my hands shaking slightly. I don't know what to say, I finally managed. You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for a response. I'm not asking for anything to change. I just needed you to know the truth. He met my eyes. Whatever you decide, however you feel, our friendship remains. The job remains. Nothing has to change unless you want it to. Ramon, I trailed off trying to organize my thoughts. You've been so good to me. You saved me when I was drowning. But I don't know if what I feel is gratitude or friendship or something more. I'm still figuring out who I am without Trevor. I'm not sure I'm ready for any kind of romantic relationship. I know. That's why I'm not asking for one. I'm just being honest about where I stand. He smiled sadly. And maybe in 6 months or a year or 5 years, you'll have figured yourself out and you'll realize you have feelings too. Or maybe you'll realize we're better as friends. Either way, I'll still be here. What if I never develop romantic feelings? I asked quietly. What if we're just friends forever? Then I'll have one of the best friendships of my life. That's not a consolation prize, Diane. That's valuable on its own. I believed him. That was the remarkable thing. Ramon wasn't trying to manipulate me or pressure me. He was just being honest, giving me information and letting me decide what to do with it. Can I think about this? I asked. Take all the time you need. Years if necessary. I mean it. He stood. Now, unless you want to talk more about this, we have a meeting with the finance committee in 20 minutes about the Denver budget. Just like that, we were back to business. No awkwardness, no pressure. Just two colleagues doing their jobs. But for the rest of the day, I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said. That evening, I called Sandra. Ramon told me he has feelings for me, I blurted out as soon as she answered. Oh, honey. I've known that since the gala. What? How? The way he looked at you. The way he talked about you. It was obvious to everyone except you. He said he's not expecting anything. That our friendship matters most. That I should take whatever time I need to figure myself out. And what do you want? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me is attracted to him. He's smart and kind and we have this connection. But another part of me is terrified. What if I'm just confusing gratitude with attraction? What if I'm not ready and I mess things up? What if he's wrong and our friendship can't survive this? Those are all valid fears, Sandra said. But here's the thing. You're allowed to not know. You're allowed to take time. And from what you've told me, Ramon genuinely means it when he says there's no pressure. I think he does. So don't decide anything right now. Just sit with it. See how you feel in a week, a month, 6 months. You've spent 15 years in a relationship where you weren't allowed to have your own feelings or make your own choices. Don't rush into defining this. She was right. I didn't have to decide anything immediately. Ramon had given me permission to take my time and I should actually take it. Over the next few weeks, I paid attention to how I felt around Ramon. We had regular meetings about work, occasional lunches, the same easy friendship we developed over the past year. Nothing changed on the surface. But I noticed things I hadn't let myself see before. The way he listened when I talked, really listened like my thoughts mattered. The way he celebrated my successes without making them about himself. The way he challenged me to be better without making me feel small. I noticed how safe I felt around him. How I could be honest about my fears and insecurities without worrying he'd use them against me later. How he made me laugh, made me think, made me want to be the best version of myself. I noticed that when I woke up in the morning, I looked forward to seeing him. And when I went to bed at night, I thought about our conversations with a smile on my face. But I also noticed my fear. The voice in my head that sounded disturbingly like Trevor, whispering that I was just trading one dependency for another. That I was only valuable to Ramon because of what he could get from me. That as soon as I wasn't useful anymore, he'd leave too. I knew those thoughts weren't rational. They were trauma responses, defense mechanisms trying to protect me from being hurt again. But knowing they were irrational didn't make them go away. 2 months after Ramon's confession, I had dinner with my therapist, Dr. Patel. I'd started seeing her shortly after the divorce, working through years of emotional abuse and control. How do you know when you're ready for a relationship again? I asked her. There's no universal timeline, she said. But I can tell you some signs. You know who you are outside of a relationship. You can identify unhealthy patterns and enforce boundaries. You're with someone because you want to be, not because you need to be. You feel like an equal partner, not a subordinate. I think I might have feelings for someone, I admitted. But I'm scared I'm not ready. That I'll repeat old patterns or get hurt or hurt him. Tell me about him. I described Ramon. Our history, our current relationship, the way he'd supported me without expecting anything in return. The respect he showed for my autonomy and my needs. He sounds very different from your ex-husband, Dr. Patel observed. He is. That's what scares me. What if I only think he's different because I'm so damaged from Trevor that my judgment is broken? Or what if he actually is different and you're letting fear keep you from something good? She leaned forward. Diane, you've spent a year rebuilding yourself. You have a career you love, financial independence, a strong support system. You're not the same woman who married Trevor. The fact that you're questioning this, being thoughtful about it, shows growth. So you think I should pursue this? I think you should stop asking permission from others, including me, to make choices about your own life. What do you want? What did I want? I wanted to feel alive. I wanted connection. I wanted someone who saw me as an equal. I wanted to take the risk of being vulnerable again, scary as that was. I wanted Ramon. But I also wanted to be sure. To know I was making this choice from a place of strength, not weakness. I need more time, I told Dr. Patel. Then take it. There's no rush. That weekend, I went to visit Jennifer in Seattle. We hadn't seen each other in person for months and I'd missed her. Over brunch, she asked about Ramon. He told me he has feelings for me, I said. About time he admitted it. You knew too. Everyone knows. The man looks at you like you hung the moon. She sipped her mimosa. The question is, how do you feel about him? I think I might be falling in love with him. But I'm terrified. Of course you are. Your last relationship was terrible. But here's what I know about Ramon Pierce. He's one of the good ones. He's not perfect, but he's genuine. And he respects you. I've seen him turn down beautiful, accomplished women because he was not interested in dating right now. But with you it's different. How? He lights up when you walk into a room. He asks your opinion on things and actually listens to your answers. He brags about your accomplishments to anyone who'll listen. That man is in love with you, Diane. The real kind. Not the controlling Trevor kind. What if I'm not ready? Then you tell him that and he waits. Or you tell him that and he moves on. Either way, you get to make the choice. That's the difference. With Trevor, you never had a choice. With Ramon, you do. Flying back to the city Sunday evening, I stared out the airplane window at the clouds below. For 15 years, Trevor had made every decision in my life. What I wore, where we lived, who I saw, how I spent my time. I'd lost the ability to trust my own judgment. But over the past year, I'd made hundreds of decisions. Big ones and small ones. Where to live. What job to take. How to spend my money. What to do with my time. And most of those decisions had turned out well. Maybe I could trust myself on this too. Monday morning, I asked Ramon's assistant to schedule a meeting. Personal, not business. Of course, Miss Foster. He has time this afternoon at 3. At 2:55, I stood outside Ramon's office, heart pounding. This felt different than the divorce, than the job changes, than any of the other big moments of the past year. This felt like the biggest risk of all. I knocked. Come in. Ramon was at his desk, working on his computer. He looked up and smiled when he saw me. Diane. Good to see you. What's on your mind? I closed the door and sat down in the chair across from his desk. I've been thinking about what you said. About your feelings. His expression became carefully neutral. Okay. I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. But I want to try. Not because I owe you. Not because I'm grateful. But because I think I might be falling in love with you, and I don't want to let fear stop me from finding out. His face transformed, joy and hope and something tender all at once. You mean that? I do. But I need to go slow. I need us to figure this out on our terms, not rushing because of some timeline. And I need to know that if it doesn't work out, we can still be friends. We can. He came around the desk and sat in the chair next to mine, taking my hand. Diane, I meant what I said. Your friendship matters. Your happiness matters. If all this becomes is us figuring out we're better as friends, then that's what it is. I'm not going anywhere. I looked at our joined hands. His were steady, warm. Safe. So what happens now? I asked. Now we take it one day at a time. Maybe we start with dinner. An actual date, not a business lunch. We talk, we see how it feels. We're honest with each other about what we need. That sounds good. He squeezed my hand gently. For what it's worth, I think you're one of the bravest people I know. Leaving Trevor, rebuilding your life, taking this chance. That takes real courage. I don't feel brave. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite the fear. You've been doing that every day for a year. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was braver than I thought. So, I said, a small smile forming. When's this dinner? How about tonight? If you're free. I'm free. As I left his office, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Possibility. Not the crushing weight of obligation or the fear of disappointing someone. Just open, honest possibility. Whatever happened next, I was choosing it. And that made all the difference. 1 year later, I stood in my bathroom getting ready for the annual Pierce Industries Gala. The same event where my life had changed so dramatically 2 years ago. But I wasn't the same woman who'd worn that blue dress and stood in the back of the room trying to be invisible. That woman was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized but deeply appreciated. I wore a red dress tonight, fitted and elegant. My hair was styled, my makeup done. I looked confident, successful, happy. Because I was all those things. My phone buzzed with a text from Ramon. Cars downstairs whenever you're ready. No rush. Ramon. We'd been together for a year now, taking it slow like I'd asked. Dates and conversations and gradual intimacy. Learning each other, building something real. It wasn't perfect. We had disagreements, moments of miscommunication, times when my old fears surfaced and made me pull away. But it was healthy. Based on mutual respect and genuine affection. Ramon challenged me to be better without making me feel small. I brought warmth and perspective to his work-focused life. We made each other laugh. We built each other up. And critically, I knew I could survive without him. I had my own career, my own money, my own identity. Being with Ramon was a choice, not a necessity. That made all the difference. I took one last look in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was 52 years old. She had lines around her eyes and gray in her hair she no longer bothered to cover. She'd been broken down and built herself back up. She'd survived and thrived. She was enough. All on her own. And that was everything. The gala was at the same hotel as last year. As we pulled up, I felt a moment of anxiety, memories of that night flooding back. Ramon must have sensed it because he took my hand. You okay? He asked. Yeah. Just remembering. Wanna leave? We don't have to go to this. No. I want to be here. I want to see how far I've come. We walked into the ballroom together. Heads turned, but this time it was because I was the VP of Community Outreach for Pierce Industries, arriving with the CEO. I belonged here. I'd earned my place. Jennifer flew in from Seattle for the event. She found me within minutes, pulling me into a hug. Look at you, she said, stepping back. You're glowing. I'm happy. It shows. She glanced at Ramon, who was greeting other executives. You two are adorable, by the way. We're taking it one day at a time. That's all any of us can do. Throughout the evening, people approached me to talk about the programs we'd launched. The mentorship initiative had expanded to 7 cities. We'd helped over 500 kids so far, with data showing significant improvements in school performance and life outcomes. The after-school program was operating in 30 locations across 5 states. We provided meals, tutoring, safe spaces, and hope to thousands of kids who needed it. And we were just getting started. Next year we'd expand to 10 more cities. The board had approved a budget increase of 60%. We were building something that would outlast all of us, something that would keep changing lives long after I was gone. At one point I found myself standing near the back of the room, the exact spot where I'd hidden 2 years ago. A young woman was standing there now, wearing a dress that was slightly too formal, looking uncomfortable and out of place. I recognized that look. That was me 2 years ago. I walked over. First time at one of these? She startled. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there. I'm Diane Foster, VP of Community Outreach. Melissa Torres. I just started in marketing last month. My boss said I should come to this, but I don't really know anyone. Come with me. I'll introduce you around. I spent the next 30 minutes making sure Melissa met people, felt included, knew she belonged. Because someone should have done that for me 2 years ago. Someone should have told me I mattered, that I had value, that I didn't have to make myself small. Later, Ramon found me on the terrace looking out at the city lights. There you are. I was wondering where you disappeared to. Just needed some air. Remembering. He stood next to me, close but not crowding. This is where it all started. Where I finally found you again. Where you reminded me who I used to be. No. He turned to face me. I didn't remind you of anything. You remembered yourself. I just held up a mirror. Maybe he was right. Maybe the strength had always been there, buried under years of manipulation and control. Maybe all I'd needed was permission to see it. Thank you, I said. For everything. For believing in me. For being patient. For loving me even when I was too broken to love myself. You were never broken. You were healing. There's a difference. He touched my face gently. And I don't love you because I helped you. I love you because you're brilliant and kind and strong and real. Because you make me better. Because you see me, really see me, not just what I've accomplished. I do see you. The boy you were and the man you became. And I love both versions. We kissed then, gentle and sweet, with the city spread out below us and the future wide open ahead. Inside, the gala continued. People networked and drank and celebrated. Somewhere in that crowd, there might be another woman standing in the back, making herself small, believing the lies someone had told her about her worth. I hoped she found her way out. I hoped she remembered or discovered or finally realized that she had value, that she deserved better, that she was strong enough to build a new life. Because if I could do it at 51, anyone could. 3 months after the gala, I was giving a speech at a conference for nonprofit leaders. The topic was creating effective mentorship programs for at-risk youth. 200 people in the audience, all of them looking to me for expertise. I wasn't nervous. That surprised me. 2 years ago, I would have been terrified. But now, I knew I had earned my place at that podium. The key to effective mentorship isn't just matching people up and hoping for the best, I told the audience. It's about creating genuine connections. It's about seeing the person, not just their circumstances. It's about believing in their potential when they can't believe in themselves. I shared Ramon's story with his permission. How a scared 13-year-old had become a billionaire CEO because one person saw him and believed in him. How that belief had rippled out across decades, changing thousands of lives. We all have that power, I said. The power to see someone who feels invisible. To believe in someone who's given up on themselves. To be the person who holds the mirror and helps them remember who they really are. After the speech, a woman approached me. She was in her 40s, well-dressed but with sadness in her eyes I recognized. Your story about the mentorship program, she said quietly. Was there more to it? About you? I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I saw myself 2 years ago. Yes, I said. There was more. Do you have time for coffee? We went to the conference center's cafe. Over lattes she told me her story. Controlling husband. Lost career. Friends who drifted away. That feeling of being small and worthless and trapped. I don't know how to get out, she admitted, tears rolling down her cheeks. I don't have money. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't know if I'm strong enough. I pulled a business card from my purse. Patricia Morrison's card. I'd been carrying it for moments like this. You are strong enough, I said. You got yourself to this conference. You approached a stranger and asked for help. That's strength. Call this lawyer. Tell her I sent you. She'll help you figure out the next steps. I can't afford. She does pro bono work for women leaving abusive relationships. Money isn't a barrier. The woman clutched the card like a lifeline. Did you really get out? Are you really okay now? Better than okay. I'm happy. I have a career I love. A partner who respects me. A life that's completely my own. It took work and time and help from good people. But yes, I got out. And you can too. Thank you, she whispered. Thank yourself. You're the one who had the courage to ask for help. That's the hardest part. On the flight home, I thought about that woman. About all the women still trapped in cages they couldn't see. About the ones who were finding their way out, one painful step at a time. I couldn't save everyone. But I could keep holding up that mirror, showing people who they really were beneath the lies and manipulation. That evening, Ramon and I had dinner at my apartment. I'd cooked, something I'd rediscovered I enjoyed when I was doing it for myself rather than because Trevor demanded it. Good day? He asked, helping me set the table. Really good. I think I helped someone at the conference. A woman in a situation like mine used to be. I'm not surprised. You have a gift for seeing people. You taught me that. You and the boy you used to be. You taught me that seeing someone can change everything. We ate dinner talking about work, about plans for the weekend, about the ordinary details of a shared life. It was comfortable. Easy. Real. After dinner, we sat on my balcony watching the sun set over the city. Ramon had his arm around me and I leaned into his warmth. I've been thinking about something, he said, and I want your honest reaction. Okay. What if we moved in together? Not right away, but maybe in 6 months or a year. When we're both ready. Moving in together. Sharing space. Combining lives. A year ago, the thought would have terrified me. But now, I think I'd like that, I said. When we're ready. No rush. Just something to think about. Ramon? Yeah. Thank you for giving me time. For letting me figure myself out before we figured out us. That's what love is, he said simply. Wanting the other person to be whole and happy even if it takes time. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror again. The same mirror where I'd looked at myself the night of the gala. The same mirror that had reflected a broken woman trying to remember who she used to be. But the woman looking back at me now was different. Stronger. Happier. More herself than she'd ever been. She'd survived a marriage that tried to destroy her. She'd rebuilt her life from nothing. She'd taken risks and made choices and created meaning. She'd learned that love wasn't about control or obligation. It was about respect and partnership and choosing each other every day. She'd learned that she didn't need anyone to complete her. She was already complete. Having Ramon in her life was a bonus, not a necessity. She'd learned that it was never too late to start over. That 51 wasn't too old to build a new life. That the best chapters might still be ahead. I smiled at my reflection. At the woman I'd become. At the woman I was still becoming. Behind me, I heard Ramon moving around in the living room, comfortable in my space the way I was comfortable in his. Equal partners. Equal lives. Equal love. You coming to bed? He called. In a minute. I took one last look at the mirror. At the woman who'd been invisible and was now seen. At the woman who'd been told she was nothing and now knew she was everything. At the woman who'd once saved a boy and in doing so had planted the seeds of her own salvation. I see you, I whispered to my reflection. And you're enough. You've always been enough. Then I turned off the light and walked toward the future, whole and happy and free.